A viewer sent me this from the Financial Times. The end of the internal combustion engine? Now, I haven't watched the video yet, but I can tell you the internal combustion engine vehicle is a walking fossil at this point in time. The asteroid has already collided with Earth, and the extinction is already underway. I'm curious to see how this question in the video title is answered, because as I record this, there are still major automotive manufacturers today who think in 2034, more than a decade from now, they'll still be selling internal combustion engine vehicles to consumers. They are wrong.
The internal combustion engine, in terms of our mass mobility for cars, is going to disappear.
So far, so good, and disappear faster than most people expect. Just want to put this on the record again. Before the end of this decade, more than 80% of all vehicles sold on Earth will be electric, in my opinion. And I suspect the actual date that this happens, it's probably going to be roughly 2028, something like that. Again, it's hard to know exactly, but my reasoning isn't based on whether or not companies will still be producing them based on their own goals and their statements today. It's whether or not consumers will need brain damage to actually purchase significantly more expensive inferior ICE vehicles. That's my thesis. EVs are already at price parity, at least in China, and Tesla's also producing electric vehicles below the average new price of a vehicle, not just electric vehicle, but vehicle in the US. And that's today. A few years from now, even the dullards and the extremely slow-moving manufacturers will eventually get to price parity as well. And by then, companies like Tesla, with a massive lead in terms of cost and technology, will have vehicles available that are significantly cheaper than a comparable ICE vehicle to buy, and obviously, by default, way cheaper to own and operate. Then at that point, consumers actually need to be dumb to buy an ICE vehicle for a comparable price, or even pay more for an inferior ICE vehicle.
We are really in a global race against the clock when it comes to climate change. If we do not phase out combustion engines, we will never reach our net zero goals.
The shift from fossil fuels to clean energy is by far the biggest project in the history of humanity.
Many customers cannot afford electric cars because they are very expensive.
Rumours of the death of the internal combustion engine are at the moment greatly exaggerated.
I'm not sure who this gentleman is, and obviously we don't have the full context around his comments, but as I said, the ICE vehicle is a walking fossil. The internal combustion engine itself is a walking fossil. Peak internal combustion engine vehicle sales occurred roughly half a decade ago, and although it's not yet obvious to some people, we are going to see dramatic year-over-year declines, and I mean dramatic year-over-year declines, in the number of internal combustion engine vehicles sold. Set yourself a reminder to check back in 3 and 5 years from now and look at both the absolute number of internal combustion engine vehicles sold, the change from 2023 to 24, 24 to 25, 25 to 26, 26 to 27, and 27 to 28, and the percentage decline. We're going to see an accelerating collapse of ICE vehicle sales. There's still a lot of momentum in the entire industry. It's like trying to turn around a huge ship on the sea. Unlike the Cybertruck, which has steer-by-wire, a giant ship does not. You can't turn it on a dime, but we're far beyond the tipping point now. Perhaps your grandparents aren't considering buying an electric vehicle yet, but your neighbours probably are. And as we know, I reported recently on this channel, a survey was conducted globally, and roughly 2/3 of consumers either already own an electric vehicle or intend on purchasing one in the next 5 years. And that's today. Tomorrow, next week, next month, a year from now, many more consumers who today were not intending on purchasing an electric vehicle in the next half decade or so will change their mind. This should go without saying, but it is worth illustrating the point. If roughly 2/3 of people today intend on purchasing an EV in the next 5 years, that's a pretty solid proxy for the percentage of electric vehicles we'll be selling within the next 5 years, not 5 years from now, within that time frame. Now, it's not perfect, but it's the best we've got to go on. And remember, if you ask these same people, conduct a survey again, ask the exact same people the same question a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, that number's only going to increase. A lot of people have a major issue and challenge in reasoning. In 2022, excluding fake electric vehicles, you know, the ones with the internal combustion engine in them and the tiny little battery, excluding the fake electric vehicles, roughly 10% of all new vehicles sold on Earth were fully electric. Now, a lot of people go, 10%, that's a long way to go to 100%. Yes, it is. But if we rewind the clock, because remember, 10% is a nice, neat number, we just need to 10x that, and electric vehicles will be 100% of all new vehicles sold. How long did the previous 10x take? Good question. Spoiler alert. We saw a 10x in electric vehicle sales from 2017 to 2022. 5 years. Now you might say, oh, but Stephen, that's just one sampling of data. That won't happen again. Now you could be right. How about the prior 10x? We don't go quite far enough back in this particular data. But if we bump a year forward to 2018, what do you know? 5 years prior to that, we saw a 10x in electric vehicle sales. So check that out. So far, we've seen consecutive 10 times increases in electric vehicle sales occurring roughly every 5 years. Of course, that definitely couldn't happen again. And I do understand the argument, a lot of supply chain, materials, parts, components, that could be a limiting factor. But here's something you may not have considered. Because I know some people will make the argument, you don't understand, man. They're very small numbers. And I get it. It's a lot easier to go from a fraction of 1% to 1%. To go from roughly 1% to 10%. Much easier to do that than to go from 10% to 100%. I get it. But I've been talking about percentage of all new vehicles sold, not number of vehicles sold. If it becomes the equivalent of exercising and demonstrating severe brain damage for a consumer, let's just say in 2027, to buy an internal combustion engine, the equation essentially, do I want to spend 35% more for a vehicle that's going to cost me 50% more to own and operate over its lifetime? It's not as safe, it's technologically archaic, has worse performance, is worse for the environment. No, I don't. If that's the situation a few years from now, if my hypothesis is correct, ICE vehicle sales are going to collapse whether or not a comparable number of electric vehicles are being produced to plug the gap, so to speak. Meaning, we don't necessarily need to see 10 times increases in the total number of electric vehicles being produced and sold per year for electric vehicles to reach 100% of all new vehicles sold. When it no longer becomes economically viable for companies to sell internal combustion engine vehicles to consumers, they'll no longer be selling them. Here's what this might look like visually. Shout out to JPR007 on X. Now, just to be clear, I'm not saying these exact numbers are going to be how things play out. However, the overall idea, the pattern, spot on. What do we see here? In grey, internal combustion engine vehicle sales having peaked half a decade ago and plummeting. At the same time that ICE vehicle sales are plummeting, electric vehicle sales are in blue. And here we have the valley of death. The shortfall between electric vehicles being produced, spoiler alert, not enough, and internal combustion engine vehicles being produced. Spoiler alert, too many, and production collapsing. So riddle me this, ladies and gentlemen. How long do you suppose until electric vehicles are close enough to 100% of all new vehicles sold? Now, I do expect there will be a long tail. I think the real threshold to be focused on is 80% of all new vehicles sold being electric, because that may as well be 100% at that point in time. Apart from a few specialist niche companies, hand manufacturing vehicles in the hundreds to car enthusiasts who still want the smell of internal combustion engine vehicles, gasoline, the feel, they're going to be irrelevant specs. It's important to understand that as internal combustion engine vehicle sales decline, the companies who produce them today and barely make any money, very thin profit margins, will see their cost per vehicle, cost per unit increase due to reversing economies of scale, meaning their profit margins will go from tiny to non-existent to negative. And at that point, as a business, if you're not making money selling your product and you look to the future and see that you'll be losing more money selling them in the future than you are today, why the fuck would you keep making them? Answer, brain damage. That's the only real reason. So what I'm getting at, a very long-winded way of saying, I think that we're going to see ICE vehicle sales plummet at a rate people cannot fathom in the next few years. So back to our good friend. I think that claims that the internal combustion engine vehicle is dead are greatly exaggerated. You see what I did there? Probably don't. It's a bit confusing. If I didn't know any better, and I'll let the guy speak, we might have a linear thinker here. Not helpful when noticing an exponential disruption.
A freedom of movement that is new in the history of man.
The advent of the internal combustion engine car completely changed the world that we live in, has done a huge amount over the last century to pull a very large number of people out of poverty by giving them economic freedom to go and travel for work.
If you move people or goods, in most of the cases globally, you rely on combustion engine technology.
The transport system accounts for something like 8% of our emissions, just in terms of cars, for example. So decarbonising that requires us shifting away from using fossil fuels, and electrification is going to be a key part of that.
Many sectors, for example steel or aviation, are completely behind on the trajectory to get to net zero. A few sectors where we can actually make progress and go to net zero are the power sector with renewables and cars and trucks with electrification.
Electric engines are 3 to 4 times more efficient, which makes the car cheaper. Batteries are improving fast, and the energy can come from clean electricity and doesn't emit CO2.
The car industry across the globe is leading the EV transformation. Multi-billion-dollar bets are being placed on this future.
The Great American Road Trip.
I'm really biting my tongue here. If you happen to be somebody who's just stumbled across this channel, I'll have to explain another time. Everyone else knows exactly why I'm cringing.
Is going to be fully electrified.
In Europe, we have a huge disparity. More than 50% of all the charging infrastructure is today to be found in only 2 EU countries.
So we're going to need something like 400,000 chargers in the UK. So we're nowhere near the scale of investment needed to actually make this work and make electric vehicles easy for people to use.
Just one note on that, should go without saying, but in case it doesn't, charging infrastructure is to be and will be built out in line with needs, not ahead of it. I've seen a few, for example, comments from, let's just pick the world's dumbest automotive manufacturer, Toyota, who are doomed. Again, I'm on the record, they're fucked. Rest in peace, Toyota. Claiming, there's not enough charging infrastructure for everyone to drive electric vehicles today. Plus, the grid couldn't handle it today. Yeah, we know, you idiots. Good thing is, the infrastructure, the changes will happen in line with increasing electric vehicle sales. Now, it's not to say that a huge amount of investment needs to take place, but if you own an electric vehicle today, especially if you own a Tesla, you can drive anywhere on Earth, essentially, and charge, no problems. And as more and more vehicles are sold, you know what's going to happen? More and more chargers will be built. So it is true to say that today there isn't enough charging infrastructure to support the entire world driving electric vehicles, but the good news also is that more chargers are and will continue to be built. Who'd have thought?
As we shift from internal combustion engine vehicles to EVs, we're going to have to replace drilling with mining and the development of raw materials. We're going to need a lot of lithium and cobalt and graphite and nickel and other critical minerals and raw materials. Whether there's enough or not is a big question.
China took the decision decades ago that it was going to specialize in batteries. It realized it had missed the boat on engines. As a result of that, today, the world leader in batteries is China. The need for batteries is going to be absolutely massive. China owns and controls a huge amount of that supply chain. That gives China an enormous amount of power in the world in the future.
Unless the European industry gets its act together and moves quickly, I think there's a very real danger that it gets wiped out by Chinese mass-produced electric vehicles.
Some facts have been spat. He's right, and this is inevitable, I'm sorry, but just the facts. As I've said and continue to say, over the longer term, the future of the automotive market in terms of units sold per year, Tesla will be number 1. And numbers 2 through 10 will be Chinese EV makers. Maybe 1 or 2 miraculous exceptions. One of the biggest casualties will be Volkswagen, and they will have no one to blame but themselves.
Many customers cannot afford electric cars because they are very expensive, and they are very skeptical in terms of the use of these cars due to infrastructure lack, due to range problems they see.
The cost of making this transition to electric vehicles is going to be enormously expensive. Every time someone drives up and needs to fast charge, the amount of power draw on that system is enormous. That means the energy grid has to be much more robust. That is very expensive and takes a very long time to put in.
All true. Does anyone know any companies that are addressing the robustness of the energy grid? Because if it's enormously expensive to do what needs to be done, which it is, and there are companies who are doing the things that need to be done, on the other end of the enormously expensive equation is the enormous amounts of revenue, because someone's got to get paid to do it, right? Yeah. I wish I knew such a company. Might be a large opportunity.
When we talk about costs, I really think it's important to stress that there is nothing inherently expensive about electric vehicles. They're simpler, they have fewer parts. The reason why petrol and diesel cars are affordable today is because they had decades to really perfect mass production and efficiency in their production process.
She is 100% spot on. There's also, for the same reasons, no meaningful ability to further reduce the cost to produce internal combustion engine vehicles. Being such a mature technology, the majority of the innovation, improvements, increasing efficiencies on the ICE vehicle have taken place. The same is not true for battery electric vehicles.
we want to make the combustion engine green. And it's possible to make it green via synthetic fuels because not the engine is the problem, the fuels are the problem.
All right, I'm going to rain on your parade here, folks. From a first principles point of view, the ICE vehicle is dead. Internal combustion engines, by their very nature, are full of moving parts. Things to break, things to wear down, things that need repairing and maintenance. By default, regardless of your fuel source, whether it's a green, biofuel, whatever the wank you want to call it, or not, these vehicles, by their very nature, will be significantly more expensive to mass produce because there's more shit going in them, more parts, more processes, more, and significantly more expensive to maintain and operate because more stuff moves, wears out, breaks, needs to get replaced, etc. In addition to that, costs to produce electric vehicles will continue to plummet over time because they're not a mature technology. Meaning, it is a commercial inevitability that ICE vehicles are going away. Not for environmental reasons, for commercial reasons. If there's any companies out there today wasting any time at all attempting to create a, quote, green alternative fuel source for internal combustion engines, they are wasting their fucking time. This would be like a company today making a massive investment in fancy whips for horses, just as the, ironically enough, internal combustion engine vehicle was disrupting the horse and buggy industry. Surely there aren't any companies dumb enough to be doing that though today, right?
When Germany changed its mind, of course there was a lot of angry in Brussels because it was the first time in history that Germany and any other country, after having said yes, says no. And it was a breach of trust.
Synthetic fuels for cars are clearly a distraction. First you have to convert electricity into fuel and you lose half of the energy. And
Bro, I'm so impressed. I mean, I really have to hand it to the Financial Times on this. Whoever's speaking right now, spitting more facts. I didn't bother getting into the physics discussion about the energy loss, which is important. I thought it's a bit too nerdy, but that's also a relevant factor. It's incredible to hear so much reason occurring in a single video from a media outlet.
you make much costs. Then you have to convert it back to either electricity or motion.
Within road transport, e-fuels are e-fools, in my view. So,
bro, what's going on? I normally spend a huge amount of my time debunking idiocy, and now I'm just like, they're right, accurate. Facts are being spat. E-fools, indeed. Man, I could have made this video a lot shorter if I just had to let them speak before I jumped in, right?
So we're really fooling ourselves that they will help Europe compete with Chinese batteries because they're simply so inefficient.
Synthetic fuels are very likely going to be one of many solutions. We need all solutions to decarbonize our economies and mobility.
Our philosophy is that we say, if we want to achieve net zero, as soon as possible, then we should use all available technologies possible.
Not sure who that dude is. Maybe I missed. Maybe he was introduced earlier. But I'm going to hard disagree on this. Concentration of efforts, investment, going to get a much better return on your investment if you double and triple down on the obvious technological solution, electric vehicles.
There has been a noticeable political pushback in the last 6 months. You've seen Germany lobbying for e-fuels to be allowed, something that would potentially extend the lives of combustion engines beyond 2035 in Europe. And you've seen the UK very noisily push back its EV-only mandate from 2030 to 2035.
I'm announcing today that we're going to ease the transition to electric vehicles.
What has happened in the UK is not a very positive illustration of clarity, because in a way the signal to customers and consumers has been that they have another 5 years before they choose to switch to electric or not. But at the same time, the sales targets for vehicle manufacturers have not changed.
The German government still has the goal that in 2030, 50 million cars in Germany are battery electric cars. We are far away from that. We just reached 1 million in 2023. I don't think this is going to work, and therefore I'm quite convinced that we will have a different debate in 2 to 5 years from now.
Okay, so let's be clear here. These government mandates are ridiculous, unnecessary, and not too far removed from fascist. We're going to look back a decade from now, when approximately 100% of all new vehicles being sold are electric, and wonder why the fuck governments thought it necessary to mandate XYZ number of vehicles being produced by XYZ date need to be electric. As I said, the transition to EVs is commercially inevitable. By later this decade, consumers will need severe brain damage to voluntarily choose to buy a much more expensive inferior ICE vehicle. There is no need to mandate ICE vehicles out of existence. There's no need to mandate EVs into existence. The amount of time, mental energy, money, incentives that's being pissed away on this is just staggering. There's no need to incentivize electric vehicle production. There's no need to disincentivize ICE vehicle production. Most of the companies today who produce ICE vehicles are going to see their production collapse as they realize that no one wants to buy their internal combustion engine vehicles. And when they stop making money on these things, they will choose to stop producing them, because why would you make stuff you're losing money on and going to lose more money on over time? It does my fucking head in. You don't need to incentivize this. Just piss off. Leave everybody alone. It's going to happen anyway. Focus on important issues as opposed to virtue signaling points. This is what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. I care about the environment. Let me prove it to you by mandating this thing. Look, see? I care about the environment. Please vote for me. This is what we're seeing around the world. It's vapid virtue signaling from supposed leaders who have no idea what's going on. I haven't heard a single world leader anywhere push back and say, you know what? It's commercially inevitable that electric vehicles are happening anyway. We don't need to mandate this, that, or the other. It's going to happen regardless. That doesn't get votes.
I think there is no question we're shifting to an electric vehicle future. And I think we will see fewer vehicles on the road with internal combustion engines as we go forward. But it will be a long time before the internal combustion is completely dead.
Essentially, there won't be much reason to buy an internal combustion engine car in the back end of the 2020s.
Holy shit, dude. More facts being spat. Bro, did he just suggest, without being so obnoxious, that consumers will require brain damage to buy an ICE vehicle in the back half of this decade? I think he did. He did. And he's right. This is one of the most impressive videos I've seen produced by a mainstream media outlet in a long time regarding electric vehicles. I'm just stunned.
And banning it by 2035 will be largely irrelevant. It'll be like,
bro, I just can't get over how accurate and on point these comments are. Shit. I feel like they've been reading my talking points, and obviously they haven't, but we're obviously on the same page here. He's just pointed out that banning them by a certain date will be largely irrelevant. Why? Commercially inevitable. What an absolute legend.
banning the steam engine. We will have anyway moved on.
For me, it's absolutely clear that for long distance shipping and planes, using synthetic fuels or fossil fuels is going to be with us for a long time, and then we use combustion engines or turbines to do that.
Something that's often lost is quite how long all of this is going to take. You will still be able to buy an internal combustion engine car in Europe in 2034. You'll be able to buy one in the US much later than that.
So, sorry to rain on this guy's parade. It's technically possible, legally, you would be able to buy an internal combustion engine vehicle in Europe in 2034 and in the US well beyond that. But in order for that to be true, obviously we're not talking about the used vehicle market, there'd need to be a company still producing them. And there's approximately zero chance that's going to be happening, except, of course, the extreme exceptions. Very small niche manufacturers producing internal combustion engine vehicles for automotive enthusiasts who love the smell of gasoline in the morning, because they'll simply be unprofitable to produce and sell. Bizarre.
Latin America much, much later than that. And these things are going to be on our roads for decades.
On that final point, completely agree. Vehicles that have previously sold, internal combustion engine vehicles, will still be on our roads for many decades to come, especially in developing nations. But the supply of new internal combustion engine vehicles is going away a lot faster than most people realise, especially the companies that produce them today. Want more content? Early access? Bunch of perks? Click the links in the pinned comment. AG1 has given me a massive, meaningful boost in energy, allowing me to do a lot more every day, including using my brain more and using my body more. I highly recommend you guys and girls check it out. It's an excellent way to fill in nutritional gaps. It's got 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients, plus prebiotics and probiotics and digestive enzymes and adaptogens to help you deal with stress. Plus, if you click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR, you can get yourself a 1-year free supply of vitamin D3 and K2. But don't take my word for it. Here's what some of you guys and girls have to say. AG1 has changed my life. I was, as you described, treating myself like a circus, ate like trash, rarely exercised, used alcohol as a stress crutch, cannabis also. AG1 is what gave me the kick in the ass, got me back to the gym, motivated me to do more for myself, family, my business, etc. Keep doing what you do. Now, I know there's some skeptics, the same kind of people who think Elon Musk is a fraud, reading this going, what do you thought? There's no way that's possible, bro. It must be a placebo effect. Believe it or not, this is a recurring theme. If you give your body everything it needs to feel and perform its best, including having a lot more energy, you'll need ways to use that energy. For me personally, that includes more exercise, moving my body more social activity, and more cognitively demanding tasks, including producing a fuck ton of exclusive content over on Twitter and on Patreon, plus my daily YouTube uploads. The proof's in the pudding. On to another testimonial from a viewer of this channel. SMR, you asked me to provide feedback on AG1. Here it is. It has helped with mental acuity, stamina, and intestinal waste management. Can't read between the lines. It certainly helps with regularity and digestion. That's what the digestive enzymes are for. It has also dramatically reduced my cravings for sugar. You guys need to stop eating sugar. It's fucking poison. I'm 50, 5'9", and overweight, aka a fat motherfucker. I think that's a technical term for overweight, isn't it? Is it fat motherfucker or obese? I can't remember. I average 100 hours a week in the West Texas oil fields as a safety supervisor. Jesus Christ, dude. No wonder you're struggling to keep your weight under control. 100 hours a week. Brutal. It has helped me lose weight. It is not an appetite suppressant. It can help fat people suppress cravings, and motivation to be healthier is critical for changing your diet. Love you, brother. Again, this is a great point. It's something people really don't seem to grasp. If you have more energy, everything becomes easier. It's like turning on easy mode for life. A few years ago, before I was taking AG1, my health was trash. I was struggling to get through the day, had afternoon fatigue. The last thing I wanted to do was either use my brain or move my body. Didn't have the energy. Now, my biggest struggle every day is figuring out ways to use that energy. I'm exercising way more, doing a lot more with my friends and family, and of course, my work output has increased substantially. And you can fact check me. Check out the average length of my videos I was posting to YouTube 3 years ago. Need I say more? And one final testimonial. Love this one. Okay, here's the deal for me with this AG1 shit. I'm 41 years old and not the type to eat, drink, smoke, or sleep healthy, so I was skeptical. That being said, here's what I experienced. Day 1, meh. Day 2, afternoon fatigue was about 45 minutes late. Day 3, 0 afternoon fatigue. Day 4, 0 afternoon fatigue plus extra energy. Day 5, again, 0 afternoon fatigue plus energy, wondering, what the fuck, really? See, this is the thing, right? The results for many people are just almost too good to be true. This is the same experience I had. My afternoon fatigue just vanished out of nowhere. I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Why am I not tired in the afternoons anymore? Surely, it's not that AG1, is it? Turns out it was. Day 6 and 7, same thing. Day 8, same thing. Plus, I had the want to get things done around the house that I normally would slack off and not get done. Again, the point, extra energy, you'll need to use it, you'll find ways to use it. Day 9, 10, and 11, and today is day 12. I fucking love it. So however you managed to get me to buy it, I'm so glad you did. Thank you so much, SMR. It really changed me so far. Guys, this shit really works. Just try it. By the way, this is the reason I continue to relentlessly promote AG1. A lot of people get real fucking mad in the comments. Oh my God, snake oil salmon's sold out. Oh my God, he's a scammer. This is fraud. But constantly, I'm pretty sure everyone making these comments is also currently short Tesla stock. I'm not particularly concerned about people having a negative perception, those folks suffering from small brain syndrome, still living in my bum's basement syndrome, etc., writing mean comments, claiming AG1's a scam or it doesn't work. I mean, bro, when I get feedback like this is what keeps me going. Just try this stuff for a month, and if you don't get these results, get your money back. See, it's a literal no-brainer. It's an IQ test at this point in time. Testimonial after testimonial after testimonial like this. Get your money back if it doesn't work. Just try it for a month, and if it doesn't work, get your money back. Today's the day. It's finally time. Be like this guy who was a massive skeptic, but finally, after 1,000 promotions in a row, caved in, tried AG1, and has results like this. Head to drinkag1.com/SMR or click the link at the pinned comment, and please, let me know how you're feeling in a few weeks' time. Now, if you'll excuse me, time to put my extra energy to good use. I'll be recording some more exclusive content for Patreon and my Twitter subscribers. So click the links at the pinned comment. See you over on Twitter and or Patreon, and don't forget to grab your AG1. Love ya.